Hello and welcome. I am your host of What Are You Reading? What Are You Writing? Author Karen E. Osborne. I have five novels out. The latest is Justice for Emerson. I am so glad that you're here. This is a space for readers and writers to come together and talk about books. So today, as I always promise you that you will meet interesting people, today you're going to meet Bonnie Comfort. Hey, Bonnie.
Hi.
So Bonnie is a practicing psychologist for 30 years. She's been doing that. Her novel, Denial, is a psychological thriller, and it was published in 7 countries and 4 languages. I mean, wow. And now she has a new book out. Staying married is the hardest part. And it raises the question, can a loving relationship endure career setbacks, infidelities, and mismatched sexual desires? So we're going to hear about all of that. You're talking to somebody who's been in therapy for like 100 years and has been married for 56 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And went into couples therapy with my brother. So I'm a believer.
Well, that's an accomplishment to be married for 55 years. Truly.
Yes, 50. It'll be 57 in July.
Wow.
Yeah. So, of course, every marriage has ups and downs, ups and downs. Everybody's writing journey is unique, right? We all have a different writing journey. And you went from writing a best-selling thriller to a raw, tell-it-all memoir.
Yes.
And there was a big span between the two. So, yeah, tell us about that.
Well, the novel that I wrote, which was called Denial, was very fun for me to write. And I had not expected to write, but my husband, who was a successful Hollywood screenwriter, said to me, "Why don't you write a novel?" And I said, "Well, okay. Do you think I can?" He said, "Yeah, I think you can." I thought, "Oh, okay. Well, I'll try it." It was a whim. Although I had always kept journals, I had never really written anything formal. So I devoted 3 years to writing it, and Simon and Schuster published it, and it was very successful. But at that point, my husband got ill. We were
Mm.
married for 33 years until he died. He did not die of cancer. That was something that happened when I was 45 and he was 50. And it interrupted everything in our lives. I had to stop writing. I had to stop doing everything to look after him. He recovered a year later. And then we moved well, we moved around. But anyway, um, I tried writing a second novel that was similar, another psychologist main character, but I didn't do as well at it. It wasn't as much fun. And then my husband got sick in a way that resulted in him not being able to work, and I had to go back to work full time. So for the last 20 years, I've been in practice full time as a psychologist, doing couples therapy, doing individual therapy. And my focus shifted. I didn't, I didn't have time to write. And then sadly, he deteriorated, he died. And then after he died, I was so grief stricken. I started writing my grief. I just had to process it. I wrote it.
Mhm.
And then, that was sort of the upper layer. And then I got down to the processed anger that I felt towards him. And we'd had these terrible conflicts over sexual differences and also differences over where to live. And I lost the battle over where to live, but I resisted some of the time appeasing his sexual tastes when they didn't fit with mine. We were very hot for each other, but I didn't want to indulge his particular fetishes, which they were not seriously and they weren't not harmful to me in any way. But what was harmful is I didn't want to do it some of the time, and I sometimes did it anyway. And so I felt ashamed of myself because as a psychologist, I knew better, and I did
Mm.
it anyway. So I had a hard time with that, and I had to write about my anger. I had to write about my shame about it, and and find a way to forgive myself and forgive him. And
Mm.
that was part of my writing. But I wrote this thing for 10 years, and then I wrote 2,500 pages. And then I had to decide, okay, which of all of this is the story I'm going to tell? And so it came down to, writing about how much we loved each other, what a great fit we were emotionally, and how we went into this relationship sexually knowing we weren't a great fit. And I agreed to do it anyway because he was just the best person for me. So, except in that way. So, I wrote about that because, no marriage has it all.
No.
And and I wanted people to know that even a psychologist has a flawed life and a flawed relationship, and that there's hope of, working it out or working around it.
So, yeah, so that's the main message, the main takeaway that you like. Who's the audience for this memoir in your mind? Who are
In
you speaking to? And what do you want them to take away from that?
My main audience are people who either are in long-term relationships or want to be in long-term relationships. And what I want them to take away from it is that no long relationship is perfect, that there are normal ups and downs, times when you are distant from each other, times when you're really angry and you think about divorce. And I want to say that there's hope for long-term relationship if you learn to be more kind, more patient, if you develop empathy for your partner, because to me, empathy is the magic bullet that can help you resolve differences. And some of it may be that you say, okay, I see who you are. I kind of knew who you were in the beginning, but now I really see who you are, and some of it in ways I don't like. And I am willing to accept those aspects of you because I love so much about you anyway.
Yeah, I love that you say empathy is the key because that's the truth. And
Mm.
also I found that it is taking the time to find where you can connect
Hmm.
rather than focusing on the things that are so different from you or really focusing on those places that you connect and then nurturing
Well,
those connection points. Yeah.
well said. Really well said from somebody who's been married for 56 years. Yes, because you don't have every connection point. And if you're going to have a satisfying and sometimes fun relationship and feel supported and nurtured, you want to focus on the ways that you do connect, way you feel good with each other, and emphasize that. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I remember as a young married, I would tell my husband, I'd say, I'm not feeling connected. We need to talk. And he would drop everything and, okay, Karen, like what's happening? But as the years went by, I'd say, I'm not feeling connected. And he'd say, it'll be okay, babe. It'll be okay. Give
But
it a minute. Give it a minute.
but he did have faith that it would be okay, and he was right.
Did. And he also knew that his young wife was very excitable and everything was drama. And
Yeah.
as we mellowed, I said, okay, I don't have to like drop everything because she's going to be okay and we're going to be okay.
Well, that was
So,
the way in which he had patience with you.
yes, and empathy, right?
Yes, yes.
Understanding who I am. Exactly right. Exactly right. So, when you write something so revealing about yourself,
Mm.
which is so brave and a gift. to others, right? Because by you putting yourself out there, you're giving so many readers a gift.
Mhm.
Um, how did people react? Like, how did your family react? How did, did your patients read this? Some of your patients read it? What have you experienced in terms of reader reaction?
Well, it was just released last week, so I don't have a tremendous amount of reader reaction other than those who knew me before and pre-ordered it. I've never discussed with my patients that I'm writing a memoir. Now that it's out in the world, the publicity may catch up with me. But that's not my purpose in being with them. And my purpose in being with them is to focus on them and their lives when I'm with them. And so I don't talk about, my own private endeavors. However, I did send my manuscript around to my closest family members because I wanted their opinion and their reaction. And they did not have an easy time with me exposing my sexual issues. And,
Mm.
one of them said to me, "Why do you have to write about that?" But I had to write about it. It mattered to me because I needed to normalize it and take some shame out of it. And I want women to be able to feel more comfortable talking about sexual issues. I mean, sexual issues are still taboo, even when you couples therapy, unless I ask, they don't bring it up.
Mhm.
So I want to normalize that. It's such an essential part of a long-term relationship. And I also well, I don't remember what I was going to say just then. So,
Yeah, it's all right. I totally get it. That
yeah,
that you couldn't, even though they were upset with you, that's something you can't take away because it's central to the story,
yeah,
right?
it
You're
was.
telling the story of a marriage, and it was central to that marriage. Yeah, I totally get that. When I
Thank
wrote,
you. I'm just interrupt you. Thank you for saying that because if I hadn't put the details of that in, it wouldn't have made sense why I had such a struggle with my marriage. I couldn't tell that
exactly,
story without including that. I'm sorry I interrupted you.
exactly. No, that's all right. I'm glad you did. That's exactly right. So, okay, so thriller, time off, memoir. What is next?
Well, right now I'm writing short stories and essays. That's that's what next. I have a lot. I mean, I wrote long form, but long form it takes a very long time to edit and to publish. And I can write essays and submit them to journals and magazines and have them taken immediately. So that's where I'm focusing right now.
That sounds good. That sounds
Yeah,
good. Essays and short stories. My son is a published short story writer. He gets into literary magazines, usually
yeah,
like twice a year. He's
yeah,
got something, and he's always writing, always writing.
yeah.
Um,
Wonderful.
yeah. So as you think about the only reason I marvel at both you and him with short stories is because I've written so many short stories and nobody likes them, whereas my novels are doing really well. So it's two mediums are not necessarily, if you could write one, it doesn't necessarily mean that you can write the other. As you look back on your reading and writing life, is there an author that had a really big impact on your style or your approach?
Well, it was different for my novel versus the memoir. When I was writing my novel, I used Scott Turow's work as a Bible.
Mm,
He
mm.
wrote Presumed Innocent. I thought that was the greatest structure for a novel, a thriller novel, a mystery. And I read it over and over, and I tried to use the structure of it. It was that one book in particular. I read a lot of books, but that's the one that was kind of my guide. Now with memoir, very different. I studied many memoir authors, how-to books like Mary Carr is one of my favorite. How to Write a Memoir. I don't remember The Art of Memoir is the name of her book, and and I took a lot of classes in memoir writing. But the books that I have loved the most now that influence my prose style, one of them is a not very well-known book. It's called Saltwater. It's by a young British author whose name is Jessica. What is her name? Jessica Andrews.
Mm.
And I, when I wanted inspiration, I would just pick up that novel and read it again. And there was something about the rhythm of her prose that I loved. So, she was an inspiration to me in memoir writing. And also Lori Gottlieb, who wrote the book has been on the bestseller list now for a couple of years. I think you should talk to somebody. That one.
Mm. Mm. Yeah. So, I love that you said you read uh, Trudeau's book over and over again. That's because that's what we do as writers. We're learning, right? We can take classes, but one of the best ways to learn is to read and
Yes.
to read. Yeah, to read and the people that do it. And I also love that reading different styles because, oh, I didn't know I could do that. Different
Right.
different approaches. Yeah. So have you read something recently that you just read for pleasure? Of course, we're learning from everything we read, but
Yeah.
is there
Yeah.
anything that you've read recently that you could recommend to our audience?
Yes. The number one book that comes to my mind is a book that was just published a few months ago. The author's name is John Kenney, Kenney, and he wrote a novel called I See You've Called In Dead. And it is the story of a of an obituary writer who's bored with his job, and at night he sort of types fake obituaries about himself, and one night he actually hits send and sends it to the newspaper. Right, so he loses his job and he has to kind of reconstruct. But what happens in this novel is it goes from being hilariously funny, which it is, to getting more and more profound as it goes on. And the end, the
Mm.
issue of the fact that we all will die and dealing with death and going to funerals, all of that, it became so profound and moving. It was an amazing accomplishment to be that funny and that profound in the same novel. So I loved that. Another novel that I just finished reading is by a psychiatrist whose name is Marty Ross Dolan, and she wrote a book called Always There, Always Gone. And her grandparents started the children's magazine Highlights, which is in every doctor's office, right?
Hmm.
And when her mother, this author's mother, was 14, her parents died tragically in a plane crash. And so the author grew up haunted by the grief of her mother and the memory of the grandparents, which the mother didn't want to talk about. And she did all this research about her grandparents, and she wrote the book as a tribute to her grandparents because her mother couldn't do it. It's incredibly moving. It's beautifully written. I loved
Wow,
it. Yeah,
that sounds amazing. Let's show the audience your beautiful book cover.
here it is.
Oh, yes. Staying married is the hardest part. Isn't
Yes.
that? It's a memoir. And how can people? So, first of all, you can buy her book every place you buy books, right? You can go on Amazon, you can go to Barnes and Noble, you can go to your local indie bookstore, go to your library. And if you don't see it, ask for it. Ask for it. But beyond that, beyond buying them, because they're going to buy your books and they're going to write reviews, how can they be in touch with you?
Oh, well, my website is bonniecomfort.com, easy to remember. You can contact me that way. I'm also on Instagram at Bonnie Comfort Author, same Facebook, Bonnie Comfort Author, so you can contact me that way. Or LinkedIn,
Excellent.
it's all Bonnie
Oh, and
Comfort
LinkedIn
Author.
too.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
LinkedIn as well. So I know you're going to follow her. You're going to be in touch. You're going to follow her on all of those platforms. And then when you reach out to her on her website or anywhere, wherever you reach out to her, please tell her that you met her. And what are you reading? What are you writing? Thank you, everyone, for being with us. Thank you, Bonnie, for being with us. Until next week, bye bye.
Thank you so much.